Dragon Slayer is a school found inside the digital universe of the game Kim Ho treasures the most. This title carries the classic formula, a world where you aim to rise as a top-tier slayer and protect mankind by wiping out the threat within a land crawling with beasts. By conquering creatures and fulfilling various missions, you can empower your avatar into a being nearly divine. And that's precisely the reason Kim Ho is so hooked. He's been grinding tirelessly, boosting his champions to unmatched levels. After elevating a full 1,000 NPC trainees to the prestigious S rank, the system hits him with a special challenge, a unique mission that no one else has had access to. The quest is classified as X rank, meaning the rewards it holds are also of X quality, a tempting opportunity, as this could push his team to X rank as well, especially since S rank used to be the absolute limit. The moment he accepts the challenge, he's instantly pulled into the actual world of Dragon Slayer Academy. But unlike many isekai tales, this guy doesn't panic or question how he suddenly got trapped inside the game's universe. It's as if getting dragged into your favorite games is just another regular Tuesday for him. Still, he opens up his character screen, and just as he expected, his stats are rock bottom. No powers, no talents. No items, completely barebones. Then comes another pop-up from the system. As a bonus for his first entry into the game, he's received a set of rare and personal abilities. The exact functions of these traits are still vague, but hopefully they'll come in handy soon. Kim Ho's counting on them to help him grind, gain levels, and reach the same overpowered status he used to enjoy. This is where the actual game begins. A new system alert pops up, prompting him to brace for the tutorial. His task, survive 10 minutes, succeed. And he'll be rewarded with the Dragon Slayer Academy's official welcome package for new students. That makes him smile. After all, staying alive against weaklings shouldn't be a big deal. The only thing he needs to do is steer clear of the mobs, notice, and wait out the clock. It's a method he's used many times before, but he has no clue that what's coming is far from ordinary. The growling and the thundering steps he hears can't possibly belong to beginner-level creatures. Up in the air, two dragons are going head-to-head. Of course, he dashes into the woods, trying to escape before he gets blown away by the chaos. He can't the correct sentence believe what he just laid eyes on. Seeing two S-rank monsters appear in a basic tutorial is absolutely absurd. Maybe this bizarre event is tied to the X difficulty tag, right then. The flame dragon starts channeling a spell and prepares to unleash a colossal wave of fire. The blast is so powerful that if Kim Ho doesn't escape now, he'll be roasted alive. That's when he recalls the unique traits he got earlier and chooses to activate one called Copy. As the label implies, Copy enables him to mimic the traits and abilities of others temporarily. But to pull this off, he must observe the skill closely. The second condition for copying is identifying the opponent's name and power tier. Luckily, being a former elite player of this very game, that's a piece of cake for him. Without delay, he mimics the enemy's attribute known as elemental resistance. Thanks to this borrowed skill, he manages to dodge the flames without getting scorched. It would have been ideal to duplicate a proper skill too, but his body currently lacks the mana to activate any. Suddenly, he senses the wind shifting backward, a sign that the fire dragon is gearing up to breathe another giant wave of flames. Meanwhile, the second dragon, the one crackling with lightning, is also gathering strength for a devastating breath strike. Sensing the imminent threat, Kim Ho bolts in the opposite direction before he ends up as Dragon Barbecue. Dragons are notorious for their breath-based assaults, even though he now has elemental shielding. Getting roasted alive is still a very real possibility if he gets caught. As he flees, both dragons detonate their powers, causing a thunderous eruption. Luckily, by the time that blast hits, the 10-minute trial period wraps up, meaning the tutorial concludes right before disaster strikes. As compensation, he receives the official Dragon Slayer Academy attire, his student identification badge, and a ticket for the Academy-bound train. In Tutorial Part 2, he must board the train to make his way to Dragon Slayer Academy. The screen transitions to a packed train prepared for departure to the Academy. Due to the overwhelming number of new enrollees, the train compartments are filled to the brim. One student wielding a katana asks a fellow traveler if he can take the empty seat in the cabin. But the only response he gets is pure silence from a girl snoozing peacefully, unfazed by the crowd. At that moment, Kim Ho enters the train as well, hoping to score a free spot for himself. The katana-wielding guy awkwardly points out how the girl seems completely uninterested in responding. Right then, the girl wakes from her nap. Kim Ho politely requests to share her space, and she appears more than happy to oblige. As he settles in, he gives his name as Kim Ho and expresses gratitude for her kindness. She responds warmly and introduces herself as Seo Yane. Meanwhile, the katana dude looks absolutely heartbroken over how unjust the world is. He got ignored, but Kim Ho gets welcomed without a hitch. Though no one prompted him, he blurts out his name as Go Hun Woo. Once again, Seo Yane gives him the same treatment, no response, not a word, regardless. He takes his seat anyway, thankful for the chance. Kim Ho then asks Hun Woo why he almost missed the train. Hun Woo explains that he saw two dragons fighting en route, a spectacle so stunning that it made him nearly forget why he was out that day. Kim Ho remembers those same beasts as well. But for him, the encounter wasn't majestic. It was traumatizing and something he'd rather not relive. The train finally pulls away, heading toward Dragon Slayer Academy. This is the same destination Kim Ho always returned to every time he trained up a new champion in the game. He basically memorized the place, so the prospect of visiting it again doesn't excite him. There's nothing left for him to discover, or so he assumes until he steps onto this train. Inside his carriage, along with the other passengers and staff, he notices that no one looks familiar. None of them resemble the usual NPCs he remembers. Though this world mirrors the game in many ways, the characters are entirely new, which implies the storyline and mission structure might have also undergone changes. With that in mind, Kim Ho decides to remain vigilant and tread carefully through unknown territory. But something's really nagging at him, the strange stares he keeps getting from the girl beside him. About Seo Yane, she has these unique eyes that allow her to convert anything she sees into readable numbers and data. For instance, she can scan the katana guy sitting across from her and immediately view his complete stats and profile. To her, he's just your standard recruit with nothing particularly special to show. But when it comes to Kim Ho, her eyes can't decipher a single thing. No matter how long she observes him, his power level remains a total mystery, and that makes him stand out. That's the exact reason she keeps staring at him with such a puzzled look on her face. She remembers being told by her handler to act warm and friendly toward anyone that piques her interest. That way she can build rapport with people. So taking that advice seriously, she unzips her luggage, which contains a few essentials and snacks for the ride. Trying to seem friendly and break the ice, she extends an offer to Kim Ho, a cookie from her stash. Naturally, Kim is taken aback by this out-of-the-blue gesture, but turning it down might come off as impolite, so he accepts the cookie anyway. Trying to keep the chat going, he casually inquires whether she made them herself, and she nods in confirmation. That clears up why the flavor is just so-so. Kim then shifts his focus to Hyun Woo and brings up the curious-looking longsword beside him. The katana wielder proudly explains that it's a treasured heirloom passed down by his martial clan. It's still sealed in cloth because he hasn't earned the right to unlock its power until then. He'll be using a spare iron blade as a stand-in. As their discussion continues, a blonde-haired guy bursts in without warning. His cheerful attitude and flashy smile completely change the mood inside the cabin. He claims he's just trying to find somewhere to sit, having wandered into this carriage. Kim isn't particularly fond of loudmouths, and this guy in particular gives off suspicious vibes. He's already sure the man isn't here for a seat, so he demands to know the real reason he showed up. The man in the suit grows visibly uncomfortable once his cover is blown. He takes out a business card from his coat and introduces himself as Shin Bungchul. He claims to run a freelance service that helps clients with everyday errands and needs, basically anything money can buy. He vows to track down whatever you want as long as you can pay for it. Kim voices his doubt. But the slick-talking man continues selling his pitch. Kim has already sized him up for what he is, a shady dealer running an underground hustle. Even now, this guy is being hunted by the authorities for promoting black market services within the Academy domain, while pushing his offer. He repeatedly sneaks glances out the window as though someone is hot on his trail. When confronted about this, the man denies everything and attempts to flee before things escalate, but it's already too late. The disciplinary committee arrives on the scene, ready to enforce the rules and deal with him directly. The guy instantly realizes he's doomed. About this disciplinary committee, it's a student-formed task force that oversees justice within Academy grounds. Yes, the very same organization that holds more sway than the official authorities. These enforcers waste no time flaunting their authority, demanding the man surrender all contraband in his possession. The poor soul tries to argue, saying his violations are practically harmless, yet they're treating him like the correct sentenced deranged, chain-bound cannibal. The squad's leader reacts swiftly, zapping the guy with a jolt of electricity as punishment for resisting. She's a mage who wields lightning, a trait Kim Ho finds both rare and fascinating. Lightning mages aren't exactly common after all. Fortunately, he has an unused copy slot available, giving him a golden opportunity to snatch her ability while he can. So Kim decides this bland cookie might actually serve a more strategic purpose. He tosses it to the floor, ready to use it as a decoy in this tense situation. Meanwhile, the disciplinary leader is already moving forward with the next phase. Now that the shady merchant has refused to comply again, her only remaining option is to take him down by force and confiscate everything in his possession. She launches a lightning spell shaped like a tiny bird, poised to drill straight through the unlucky guy. Just as it looks like he's about to get obliterated, Kim Ho stretches out his hand and intercepts the bolt before it can reach its mark. Naturally, this stuns the disciplinary commander completely. Kim Ho steps outside the cabin, grumbling about how their loud antics made him drop his precious cookie. The committee leader looks genuinely confused, unsure of what this lunatic is rambling about. Meanwhile, Kim Ho has already achieved what he came for. He's successfully stolen her lightning-based magic, a skill known as Hummingbird. He solemnly mourns the tragic loss of what he calls his dearest, most irreplaceable partner in life, a cookie. With his cookie dreams shattered, he points fingers at the annoying student council, blaming them for ruining his entire afternoon. One of the committee members isn't amused, calling out Kim Ho's excuse as utterly absurd. Apparently, this Korean Jesus-looking guy is ready to brawl and threatens to throw hands over the so-called disrespect. Hyun-woo instinctively reaches for his sword as well, warning that if things escalate, he'll respond with equal force. Now with both groups locked in a tense standoff, we get that classic stare-down shot, the type where everyone's waiting to see who moves first. Fortunately, the disciplinary chair decides to de-escalate, pulling her hot-headed teammate back and offering Kim Ho a dessert voucher as compensation for his tragic loss. Kim Ho accepts the deal without hesitation, walking off satisfied, leaving Shin Bungchul to fend for himself. Truth is, Kim Ho had no intention of saving the dude anyway. He just needed to grab that lightning spell. Now that he has both a copied skill and trait, his current setup is complete. Soon after, the council president collects the item Bungchul was allegedly trying to smuggle. Turns out it's a ridiculous wig, stolen from a staff member working at the station. Being the cash-hungry weasel he is, Bungchul had taken on a prank job for some money. Even Kim Ho admits this one's on the guy entirely. As the committee walks off, the elegant girl gives Kim Ho a warning. He'd better watch out for Bungchul's tricks if he values his safety. But Kim Ho doesn't take kindly to being told what to do. He's convinced he can handle anything that comes his way. Meanwhile, Korean Jesus stares him down and swears he'll remember Kim Ho's face for next time. As for Hyun-woo, he's busy digging into the identity of the disciplinary group. From Bungchul's mouth, he learns that they're the absolute cream of the crop. The current leader, the same one who fired the hummingbird spell, is named Chunhi. Her name rings a bell. Hyun-woo realizes she's from the legendary Song bloodline, the very family in charge of the Topaz Tower. Aside from being gorgeous and dressing like she owns the world, she's not someone to be underestimated. Her grandfather, none other than Thunderlord Song Jaeyoung-yun. And let's be real, I don't even know the guy, but I already pity whoever dares date Chunhi in the future. As for the squad behind her, they aren't some low-tier henchmen either. There's Jo Bok, a standout student personally trained by the Fist King. Then you have Han S, who's learned under the legendary Sword Empress herself. And finally Gao Myeon. Despite the teasing tone, he's actually the sole heir of the Golden Lotus Pavilion. Once introductions are wrapped, Bungchul decides to disappear from the scene. With him gone, Hyun-woo turns toward Kim Ho, clearly curious about that cookie stunt earlier. He finds it strange that Kim Ho would throw himself into a confrontation just to save a single cookie. Disclosing the facts, Kim Ho reveals that he actually arrived to investigate the impressive lightning technique wielded by Chunhi. This information catches Hyun-woo off guard because he did witness Kim Ho stepping forward to intercept the hummingbird charm, which prompts Kim Ho to test his understanding of the incantation. After pondering briefly, Hyun-woo admits he had never observed the use of this spell before. Even having caught a glimpse of it, he was unable to perceive the released lightning hummingbird. It appeared as though the assault never intended to harm its target directly, but instead to immobilize them momentarily. Kim Ho listens to his insight and partly concurs with his assessment. He proceeds to explore why it is named the hummingbird spell originally, as it draws inspiration from the distinctive flying style of the bird. You see, in a standard casting of the spell, its effectiveness depends on the mage's skill level. The fact that Chunhi employed the hummingbird reflects her mastery. Now, if Kim Ho were facing a seasoned mage, he wouldn't have managed to capture the hummingbird because the caster could skillfully manipulate its flight path. Yet strangely, rather than modifying its trajectory, it ended up trapped in his palm. That clearly indicates only one thing: Chunhi requires more practice in controlling her power. At this moment, Hyun-woo is genuinely impressed by Kim Ho's detailed explanation and keen interest in a spell. Incidentally, there's another detail Kim Ho noticed when the spell was launched. He judges that Chunhi is gifted for casting an E-rank skill despite possessing only a D-rank strength attribute, suggesting she may possess a powerful innate trait and even hinting at a substantial internal mana reserve. Either way, Kim Ho believes she will easily fulfill her title as the Thunderlord's granddaughter. Returning focus to Hyun-woo, he has quickly grown to admire and befriend Kim Ho during their brief interaction. Kim Ho thinks this guy might be overdoing it a bit, but Hyun-woo is earnest about his support and even offers assistance whenever Kim Ho might require it. Grateful for the offer, Kim Ho promptly decides to seize the chance and invites him to accompany him. Simultaneously, he courteously requests a sudden favor to borrow a single silver coin. In the following scene, they arrive at Kim Ho's selected spot. Unfortunately, the machine is malfunctioning. And yes, it's a gambling device because this area used to be a casino. The machine looks dilapidated and broken to Hyun-woo's eyes, yet Kim Ho is ready to wager all his savings on it. In other words, the single coin he borrowed from Hyun-woo. Upon inserting the coin, initially nothing occurs, prompting them to question if it truly is broken. But suddenly the machine activates and powers on, revealing a secret feature named the broken slot machine. Naturally, this is something Kim Ho recognizes, having unlocked every achievement in the entire game. Using this as his lucky break, Kim Ho pulls the lever back, betting on the outcome. However, to their mutual disappointment, the only prize he ends up receiving is a bottle of water. Yes. Not the wooden staff of destruction or the relentless forked sword or even the covert American technique called the farmer's shotgun, just a simple water bottle. Hyun-woo doesn't understand what Kim Ho is doing here. Meanwhile, Kim Ho quickly clarifies that what they're doing blatantly breaks the Academy's rules because claiming any item from the machine is prohibited. This causes Hyun-woo to realize he's essentially acting as a lookout, while Kim Ho repeatedly uses the lever to gather the machine's rewards. He also suspects they'll be okay since the committee rarely makes visits. And well, consider that another entry in the archives of final quotes before disaster, because just a moment later, the ever-watchful disciplinary enforcer Sman steps in to investigate what they're up to. Sman reminds them of the penalties tied to tampering with the machine, which could earn them a handful of demerit points. Clearly, the tables have turned, prompting Kim Ho to whisper to Hyun-woo to stall her for a moment. The charming girl then warns Kim Ho's companion that he'll be facing punishment too for assisting with rule breaking. But to her surprise, Hyun-woo sincerely doesn't care about the consequences. In fact, he draws his blade, curious to challenge a disciple of the Sword Empress. Sman gets ready as well after learning his name. Without any more pleasantries, Sman charges forward with a fierce opening lunge. Her forceful strike is parried by Hyun-woo, who instantly retaliates, yet Sman sidesteps it effortlessly, after pulling back for a moment. She infuses power into her weapon and dashes forward at lightning speed. Leaping into the air, she brings down a crushing blow with all her body weight behind it. The impact is so intense that Hyun-woo needs both hands just to block it. Kim Ho is spectating the clash. Noticing that Hyun-woo is clearly limited by his low internal energy, which is holding him back. At the same time, Kim Ho doesn't want this fight to wrap up too soon. He came for the spectacle. Extending his hand toward the swordsman, Kim Ho casts an enhancement spell, elevating his magic core from E grade to C grade. However, this buff only lasts for 1 minute and comes with a 1-hour cooldown. This 60-second window becomes Hyun-woo's make or break moment as he continues struggling to match Sman's incredible form. The duel rages on as the timer ticks down to 14 seconds, causing Kim Ho to reflect on how slot machines are typically shunned due to their gambling design. However, there's a detail that players aren't aware of: a built-in mechanic that ensures a jackpot reward. Think of it like the pity system in a standard gacha game. At the start, players are given a total of 5 coins, and right now Kim Ho is on his 5th and final spin. This time, however, he's fully confident in spending that extra silver he borrowed from Hyun-woo. It turns out that right after the 5th spin concludes, the 6th guarantees a jackpot trigger. It's not probability, it's a 100% guaranteed outcome for landing the top-tier prize. The machine finally delivers its most coveted reward, the Dark Ice Crystal, rated at grade C. The item, however, comes with a built-in risk. If misused, it could kill the user. Regardless, trouble brews for Kim Ho as the blue-haired menace attempts to strike him from behind. But Kim Ho had already anticipated this and counted on his loyal ally to intervene. Hyun-woo does succeed in deflecting the attack, though it destroys his iron sword in the process. The 1-minute duration ends, but to Sman's disbelief, Kim Ho goes on to consume the Dark Ice Crystal despite its warning label. Immediately, the system inflicts a frozen status on his body. Predictably, the guy starts choking, just like that iconic Joffrey scene from Game of Thrones. But interestingly, in Kim Ho's case, the frozen effect keeps activating and canceling itself repeatedly, resulting in an infinite loop. And just 1 moment later, Kim Ho stands tall again like nothing ever happened, leaving both the enforcer and Hyun-woo in absolute disbelief. Soon after this moment, Hyun-woo inquires about the contents of the vial, and Kim Ho responds by saying it was a mana restoration potion. Let's take a closer look at the special 6th spin of the slot machine. When triggered, it dispenses the Dark Ice Crystal. But this thing is incredibly dangerous for most beginners, often leading to a gruesome death. It's so fatal that even a sliver no bigger than a nail can turn your whole body into a block of frozen sculpture. Basically, imagine Medusa's petrification spell. But this time, you're the one drinking your own demise. Despite its deadly nature, Kim Ho emphasizes that he's not affected like others. Why? It's due to his S-rank elemental immunity, a unique trait he inherited from the S-rank dragon during his tutorial challenge. Thanks to that, his body now constantly cycles between applying and negating the frozen status, rendering it completely harmless. But that's not all, he's also able to tap into the enormous power contained within the crystals. As for how he handled the situation with the committee member, he relied on his top-tier social deception skills to mislead her with a made-up explanation. Anyway, Hyun-woo is pretty happy that he got to lend Kim-ho a hand, especially since it gave him a chance to spar against a disciple of the Sword Empress. Kim-ho appreciates it nonetheless, because he couldn't have made the sixth spin work without Hyun-woo's help. The swordsman finds himself fascinated by the power-boosting spell Kim-ho used during the duel, but Kim-ho respectfully declines to share the technique freely, explaining that he can't use it whenever he wants. Which is absolutely true due to the cooldown restriction. Kim-ho's reasoning makes sense, and even Hyun-woo understands that a high-tier spell like that has to come with a cost. Meanwhile, the sleepy Yane is just now starting to catch on to what they're talking about. Speaking of which, the trio is about to arrive at their next stop, Dungeon Island, the final destination on the train line. Dungeon Island is well known for its massive concentration of dungeons, and in the past it was crawling with criminals who ignored all forms of order. Everything shifted when the Dragon Slayer, the first and most iconic hero, set foot on the island. First, he eliminated every last outlaw. Then he single-handedly conquered every dungeon on the land and eventually used the entire island as the foundation for a city. That city would go on to become the birthplace of Dragon Slayer Academy, an institution where elite warriors are trained and molded. Once they arrive at the academy, Hyun-woo is in awe of the energy radiating from the crowd. The place is bustling with students from a variety of backgrounds. Unexpectedly, the group runs into Chunhi, the head of the committee, who requests that Kim-ho visit her office once more. The scene transitions to the committee room, a chamber known for interrogations so intense and life-altering that anyone who enters rarely walks out the same. The interrogation starts with the committee checking Kim-ho's body after he consumed the crystal. Naturally, there's nothing to report. The frozen condition is completely gone. This makes the committee question whether the banned item was even real to begin with. Si-hun, the interrogator and the one in charge of the department, issues a stern warning. If Kim-ho ever goes against the council again, there will be real consequences. Although no harm was done this time, they won't be cutting him any slack if he ends up in trouble again. And with that, the meeting concludes, leaving the council leader visibly dissatisfied. Thing is, the whole situation feels suspicious from start to finish. They still can't understand why Kim-ho would use the machine if he wasn't trying to get a prohibited item in the first place. And then there's also the matter of the boy ingesting it right in front of their faces. Yet somehow the scanner showed absolutely nothing. From what she's seen, Chunhi firmly suspects that their target might have acquired an unauthorized ability, and she suggests verifying his current skills using a tool known as the magnifying glass. Si-hun agrees it's an option, but points out the risk if the process returns empty results. Since the magnifying glass exposes everything, they must be fully confident in their accusations beforehand. Chunhi quickly acknowledges her misstep and apologizes, and the senior reminds her to approach matters with more care. He also tells her to make her way to the entrance event before she misses out. In the following scene, Kim-ho rejoins his crew among the other first years. He's just cleared tutorial phase 3 by attending the opening ceremony on time, which rewards him with several silver coins and a pass to choose one weapon. Even if it's only rank E, it still beats having nothing, and this also helps him make up for the coins he previously spent. Anyway, the entrance ceremony gets underway, but it hardly leaves the best first impression. You see, the person representing the school looks like a total burnout, as if someone paid him to just show up and speak. Apparently, this man used to command the original Dragon Slayer battalion. Due to tradition, the Academy's principal is always selected from the ranks of retired veterans who once served on the front lines. Back in his golden days, this man wielded a flashy legendary blade and was considered a top-tier warrior. So while his appearance says otherwise, his resume is no joke. Amusingly, he's also infamous for getting turned down by a particular saint, and rumor has it he's still getting rejected to this day. At last, it all makes sense why this guy looks so defeated. He's still losing his battle with the friend zone, regardless. The principal begins by welcoming the Academy's newest batch of students. He speaks on the founding ideals of the institution, which, as the name implies, exists to cultivate heroes capable of defeating dragons and to shape them into true dragon slayers. The original hero from the past stressed the idea of slaying, believing it essential for every student to grasp its weight. Kim-ho knows this is supposed to be a motivational speech, but honestly, the man's endless talking is so painfully dull that half the audience starts nodding off. I'll go ahead and do everyone a solid and fast forward through this sea of rambling. Eventually, we reach the moment where the man finally wraps up. The only one who looks energized and wagging his metaphorical tail is none other than Hyun-woo, who found the speech oddly inspiring. Meanwhile, any regular person like Kim-ho would have checked out mentally after 5 minutes, but the swordsman, He's apparently built different, having been trained to endure endless lectures from his long-winded master. Anyway, the ceremony enters its next phase, where the students are reminded of this year's updated list of banned artifacts. If caught with one, they'll be punished without exception. On top of that, the incoming class will soon undergo a field test within a dungeon's first floor, a measure to reduce future danger. Instructor for Eyes stresses how vital it is to maintain a safe learning environment and urges everyone to follow regulations. And with that, the entrance ceremony comes to a close. The students can hardly believe it. The speech that never ended has finally finished. Immediately after, Baicho catches up with the group and suggests they all grab a bite. Also, it seems the guy picked up a brand new tattoo, probably after getting on the bad side of that cute beast scene in the background. Either way, Byuncho advises them to eat up well because starting tomorrow, their entire lives are about to shift with their very first class. That very evening, Hyun-woo and Kim Ho happily realize they're going to be living next door in the dorms. Kim Ho heads straight inside to settle in, but he doesn't permit himself the luxury of drifting off just yet. Instead, he assumes a still posture on his bed, entering a state of concentration to gather mana and construct a core. Now's the perfect moment to explain the notion of a power source. To activate any mana-based technique, a core is absolutely essential. Truth be told, Kim Ho has never produced one before. But since he's played this game an absurd number of times, he's got the theoretical groundwork down. Moreover, he has already channeled his mana into a dark ice shard, which is a solid start on his part. The scene shifts over to Hyun-woo, who also appears to be meditating, mentally reviewing his recent clash with the formidable Sman. She's been his genuine rival for ages, and even though both of them restrained a significant portion of their power during their bout, a full-on fight would have been much tougher to settle. When Kim Ho stepped in and enhanced the swordsman's core, he allowed Hyun-woo to hold out far longer than expected. Basically, Hyun-woo now views Kim Ho as an expert, an impression that sticks through every exchange they share. Not only is Kim Ho cool-headed, but he also has the insight to dissect any challenge laid before him. That's why Hyun-woo feels torn, uncertain if he should put his faith in Kim Ho and ask for assistance. However, he soon decides it wouldn't be right to treat his first friend like a mere transaction, so instead, he resolves to rely on his own strength. Which brings us to the following day inside the provisional classroom. The students are all present, chatting away, and the drowsy Yane finally strolls in, though her teammates expected she'd be way later. What's unexpected is that the teacher is nowhere in sight. Class is supposed to be underway, yet no authority figure has arrived, making it seem like their instructor has a habit of being late. Eventually, someone steps in and walks to the front, stirring curiosity at first, which then instantly turns to dread. Yeah, anyone would feel that way after glimpsing this guy's expression. With a vibe like a fugitive killer, he introduces himself as their homeroom teacher, Lee Sudok. Without wasting time, he calls on a student to share his well-known identity. A panicked girl pipes up and blurts out he's called the villain hunter. She misses the mark and tries again, labeling him the human butcher, another alias he's earned. Meanwhile, Kim Ho is absorbed in processing what's going on. Let's pull back for a second and look at the academy setting. This place is the last sanctuary where elite S-rank heroes are trained to surpass limits. Naturally, some of them fall to the dark side and become villains chasing selfish ambitions. Sudok, their teacher, is a tracker who hunts such rogues down and beats the correct sentence out of them. Put simply, this man is Aura Incarnate, a guy who wrecks S-rank threats like it's nothing. In fact, the reason behind his nickname is that he's infamous for slaying more villains than bringing them in alive. Sudok openly states that teaching wasn't his choice. He only took the job due to the principal's insistence. He's the kind of guy no one dares to the correct sentence with, and he's recognized for flawless efficiency. With this new role, he plans to hold his students to that same exacting standard. This guy's obsession with flawlessness runs so deep that he openly threatens to execute anyone who flunks his exams. Ah yes, nothing screams inspiration like the looming risk of death. As he begins his first lecture, Sudok lays out the academic grading breakdown for their school. First up, the written test contributes to 30% of the final score. Then there's a conduct-based portion, worth 10%, which basically rewards students for staying out of trouble, a bonus for good behavior. Naturally, that same chunk can plummet to 0 if anyone slips up, dragging down their total grade. Sudok dryly jokes that he'll keep a close watch on all of them, so maybe, just maybe, some of them will actually make it to graduation. He then dives into the real meat of the assessments: 2 hands-on trials, dungeon runs, and student versus student battles, just as the titles imply. They'll be sent into dungeons and forced to duel their classmates for points. Their scores for these events will be determined by comparison with their peers. To summarize, 3 evaluation types make up 90% of their score, while the remaining 10% is tied to attitude, bringing the total grade up to a full 100%. With the criteria explained, the instructor wastes no time and marches the rookies straight to the training arena. Plenty of battles are already underway. You remember what Byung-chul was hyped about yesterday? This is exactly what he meant. The player matches. The rules of these matches tend to shift depending on the format. This particular session, it's categorized as a death match, though not in a literal sense. It means the duel lasts until one contestant's HP hits rock bottom or they become unable to go on. Surrender is allowed. And each round is limited to 5 minutes. If neither combatant ends the match within that time, it either ends in a draw or is judged by an official ruling. Byung-chul further explains that each contender will go head-to-head with 3 randomly selected peers from the same academic year, earning a tidy 300 points per win. But what about losses or ties? To that, Kim Ho jumps in and clarifies that there's no penalty, but don't expect a pity prize either. All of a sudden, a system prompt pops up notifying Kim Ho of a subquest tied to this placement challenge. His task: participate and reach at least an average result, which means taking down at least one rival. Should he succeed, he'll earn an extra copy slot as a reward. Honestly, by Kim Ho's judgment, it's a pretty manageable quest. A single victory and a decent score in dungeon mode should be well within reach. Still, what really grabs his interest is the chance to study his fellow students' abilities, because this is his moment to spot standout talents who could be future X-tier heroes. At the very least, he could mimic their abilities and add them to his own arsenal. Moments later, his internal planning is cut short when the announcer calls out Kim Ho's name, along with his opponent, summoning them to the arena. Immediately, Kim Ho lays eyes on the crimson-haired girl representing the Ruby Tower, famed for its destructive flame mages. Their high-damage fire skills were the reason Kim Ho used to main them back in his gaming days. But now, she's about to be his live combat experiment for the next 5 minutes. Just so you know, she's visibly unimpressed to be facing someone with no notable reputation. To her, he's a total nobody. Even worse, he's wielding a sad-looking earth staff that resembles a worn-out tin rod you'd expect an old man to wave around. Frankly, she finds it insulting the guy showed up with a miserable E-rank weapon. Based on this, she concludes he can't be from Emerald Tower, which would rule out any real Earth Mage affiliation. That leaves her guessing he must be some kind of support-type spellcaster. She analyzes the staff's purpose and imagines he plans to use it for buffing or healing. As the duel kicks off at full throttle, Yanhwa assumes he's a backline caster and prepares an explosive ignition spell, intent on finishing the fight in one decisive strike. Right after she unleashed her ability, the spectators were captivated by her fierce display as a representative of the Ruby Tower. Yet to Yanhwa's complete astonishment, her opponent's HP hadn't dropped in the slightest. Sure, she didn't expect a knockout blow, but the fact that he took absolutely no damage was beyond belief. As the haze fades, Kim Ho grins at her bewildered expression. The battle heats up and Yanhwa is already unsettled, puzzling over why her strike had no effect. Suspecting that her enemy might have activated a nullification technique, she switches gears and prepares a move that can't be interrupted by a dispel. She summons blazing columns that erupt all around him, forcing him into a corner where any wrong move could be disastrous. But again, to her utter disbelief, Kim Ho stays perfectly fine. That's right, look at him standing proud and untouched, not even breaking a sweat. It ticks Yanhwa off so much that she launches a third strike, a fearsome magic spell known as the Fire Pillar. The blaze crashes down right toward Kim Ho's skull, erupting into a fiery explosion on impact. The massive inferno stuns the crowd, once again leaving them awed by the overwhelming force wielded by Ruby Tower's ace. But despite all the spectacle, the outcome is what anyone expects, because just like before, Kim Ho emerges completely unharmed. She had been relying heavily on her mastery of Ruby Tower's spellwork, yet none of it even chipped away at his health bar. At last, Kim Ho decides to retaliate, and calls upon the hummingbird spell he acquired from Chunhi. Yanhwa is completely caught off guard. She never imagined a support mage would wield lightning-based magic. Though she dodges the bird at first, Kim Ho expertly redirects its path, causing it to hit her from behind. That's right. He landed a lightning-infused backshot. Collapsing, Yanhwa succumbs to the paralysis effect triggered by the hummingbird technique. With the fight all but over, Kim Ho suggests that they end it there. He figures it wouldn't be wise for her to showcase every trump card in front of the whole crowd. Doing so could put her at a disadvantage in the matches ahead. Even though his words feel patronizing, Yanhwa chooses to concede, leaving the entire audience stunned. Their expectations were thoroughly shattered, kind of like the disaster that was the final season of Game of Thrones. Regardless, Kim Ho doesn't enjoy the sudden spotlight shining on him right after his first match, so he plans to keep things low-key moving forward. Ironically, his name is immediately called again for the next round, not giving him any time to rest. This time, his opponent is none other than Chunhi. Yes, the same stylish powerhouse who also happens to lead the Freshman Discipline Council. She's radiating pressure like a boss, and more than that, she's got unfinished business with Kim Ho. He stares at her briefly, and just to the correct sentence with her momentum. He bows out of the fight before it even gets started. Sudok is taken aback by the sudden withdrawal, but Kim Ho just shrugs, saying he's not in the right condition to continue. Although the teacher hints that he should aim for a higher exam score, Kim Ho doesn't really care, since he already secured the one win he needed. He goes ahead and forfeits his third match as well, turning it into both his second and third losses, which infuriates the Thunderlord's granddaughter. She bellows at him for being weak and for lacking the courage her grandfather always stood for. He had always believed in fighting with conviction. Speaking of her grandfather, Kim Ho recalls that the man once held the title of Thunder Monarch, and he can clearly feel that same legacy reflected in Chunhi's presence, under normal circumstances. The advice she gave might have actually been helpful, but for Kim Ho in particular, it didn't register at all, not that he cared. He simply walks away without a word, keeping the same blank expression and handing her the win by default. Chunhi, though frustrated, accepts the result, even if she finds it utterly unsatisfying and beneath his potential. Before heading off, Mr. Troll Supreme tosses a jab her way, asking her to send over that precious dessert coupon she'd promised earlier. That tiny remark gets under her skin so deeply it's a miracle she doesn't blow her top. Too bad her next challenger won't be so lucky. Yang Jai-hung enters the ring expecting a decent match against a Topaz Tower mage. He has no idea he's walked straight into Lady Lightning's wrath at the worst possible time. The result: she the correct sentence his entire body with a lightning strike fit for a Greek god. Within seconds of the opening bell, the match is done. Severe burns cover her opponent's body, which only amplifies her intimidating presence, especially in the eyes of Bunch, who now realizes Kim Ho made the smartest choice possible by avoiding a confrontation with her. Was that a bar? Ironically, Chunhi's now shooting daggers at him with a side glare so explosive that even Byung-chul can't pretend not to see it. But Kim Ho couldn't care less. Or maybe he's just too dense to notice. He's actually quite impressed by her dramatic entrance as the descendant of the Thunderlord. Meanwhile, the audience isn't as forgiving. They're clearly annoyed with how Kim Ho chickened out of both his second and third matches. Many are beginning to believe that his win over Manhwa was pure fluke, and that's exactly the narrative Kim Ho wants them to believe. Because for him, a little bad publicity actually plays in his favor. Anyway, Chunhi is now stepping up for her final match of the day, and this time her rival is the stunning Seo Yane, referred to by some as the daughter of Korea's very own John Wick. Shockingly, Yane turns out to be a gun-type duelist. The battle is shaping up to be a spectacle worth watching, since gun wielders often hold a tactical edge when facing spellcasters. There's a growing buzz that Chunhi might not walk away with this one. Kim Ho, however, keeps his opinion open. The outcome is far from clear. To raise the stakes, he throws in a little wager, 5 silver coins on the winner. And of course, Byung-chul, being the greedy gremlin he is, jumps on the offer without hesitation. The match between the composed lightning heiress and the quiet, deadly gunfighter officially begins. Yane takes the initiative, launching a barrage of shots using reinforced bullets. As expected, Chunhi deflects them with little difficulty. Everything is going according to plan from Kim Ho's perspective, as he knows Chunhi's mana reserves are top tier. She then follows up by summoning a squad of hummingbird spells. The magical birds dart toward Yane, who stays focused and continues to fire. She skillfully avoids both incoming attacks. But just like Kim Ho did earlier, Chunhi manipulates their path midair to strike from behind. One of them grazes her cheek, stunning Yane and sending her to the ground. It wasn't a direct hit, though if it had been, the stun would have been enough to end the match instantly. Still, Kim Ho notes that the attack slowed Yane's reflexes considerably, and with the first bird zapping her nerves, dodging what comes next will be nearly impossible. Things are unfolding exactly as Kim Ho predicted, with Chunhi closing in on victory. But then, the unexpected happens. Yane tosses a smoke grenade, obscuring the battlefield and breaking her opponent's line of sight. It's a clever trick that catches Kim Ho off guard, because he knows full well that any other type of grenade would never have reached Chunhi in the first place, with her view obscured by smoke. The situation becomes trickier for the lightning spellcaster, and this is precisely when Yane begins to capitalize on her edge. The sharpshooter lines up a clean shot and strikes Chunhi square in the back, a bull's. At first glance, it looks like the blast landed solidly, but thankfully, Chunhi had triggered a protective ward in the nick of time, though it still left her vulnerable. She quickly senses that things are getting dangerous, while the marksman smoothly repositions for a follow-up strike. Interestingly, Byung-chul notes that Yane might actually be some pampered heiress of a tycoon, because part of her loadout includes an advanced invisibility cloak. And on top of that, she's pulled out a high-grade sniper rifle to maximize damage output. A single blast from this weapon carries such intense power that Chunhi doesn't even consider blocking. It's too risky. She barely sidesteps the beam by a few inches. At the moment, both of their health bars remain fairly close, and half of the match's time limit has already elapsed. The challenge with the invisibility cloak is that Chunhi can't get eyes on her rival at all. She's caught off guard each time Yane lets loose another round, which is exactly what happens when the gunner fires once more from behind. However, this time Chunhi puts a plan into motion. Using the energy signature left behind by the bullet on her barrier, she's able to trace its route precisely, narrowing in on her opponent's exact whereabouts. Within the brief moment she's granted, the quick-thinking mage discharges electricity across the battlefield, sending a surge straight toward Yane and forcing her to retreat with a sudden jump. Though she manages to dodge the initial strike, she's cornered now as Chunhi has finally zeroed in on her. And more importantly, there's no way the gunner can avoid the next hit while still airborne. The hummingbird swiftly closes the gap, landing a stunning blow right on Yane. Sadly for Chunhi, the very moment her attack lands is the same moment the round timer ends. Even though Yane collapses with a lower health percentage than Chunhi, the duel concludes. Bongchul is left stunned, while Kim Ho remains unfazed, because after witnessing the committee leader's strength, he's certain nobody could top her in a straightforward confrontation. By default, since Chunhi retained more HP, she's declared the winner. At the same time, he's also impressed that Yane managed to hold her ground for that long. Now, regarding the wager, unfortunately for Bongchul, he loses and hands over his coins, though he's eager to stake another bet immediately in hopes of reclaiming the loss. Kim Ho realizes this guy clearly has a gambling problem and turns him down flat. Back in the arena, the gallant swordsman Hyun Woo steps up to challenge his adversary, the Fist King student, Jo B. Because the matchup seems exciting, Kim Ho accepts the new wager, firmly believing the disciple of the Fist King will likely walk away victorious. Byung-cho feels Kim Ho is being way too harsh on his own buddy by saying that, but Kim Ho simply calls it how he sees it. Of course, the compulsive bettor doesn't get it, but Kim Ho assures him the truth will reveal itself soon enough. Let's now shift to Hyun Woo's point of view. He knows his friend is watching and is determined to bring out his best form, even if the match proves to be a difficult one. He draws his iron blade while his opponent Bei questions why the other weapon on his back remains untouched. Regretfully, Hyun Woo admits that he's not yet ready to wield that one, but the disciple of the Fist King doesn't give it much thought. He's entering this duel with his full power. No matter what, with both warriors bracing themselves, the battle begins. The attacker is Bayek, who smoothly dodges the swordsman's initial swing and swiftly maneuvers in for a blazing strike. Even Hyun Woo can admit that this guy's agility is on another level. For the record, that fiery jab packs such serious force that Hyun Woo felt its pressure clearly, despite blocking it. The collision alone sends him flying across the arena. Hyun Woo instantly grasps just how dire his current position is. Regular moves won't cut it if he wants to hold out in this match. Meanwhile, Bayek lunges like a missile, diving into another blow, while the swordsman prepares to end it all with a decisive technique, activating his brilliant clearing sword style. He squares off against Bayek's supercharged fists. Sadly, the outcome is bleak. Hyun Woo's blade snaps right at the point of impact. With his sword now destroyed, the swordsman, now just a bare-handed fighter, accepts his loss without protest. Even so, he did manage to land a shallow wound on Bayek's shoulder, who smiles at the idea of facing him again someday. The match ends exactly as Kim Ho foresaw, because that iron sword is far too underwhelming for someone with Hyun Woo's capabilities. That's the same thought that popped into Kim Ho's mind when he first saw him train. It's almost like Hyun Woo has made a habit out of snapping iron blades in every duel he participates in. Byung-cho, yet again, suffers defeat. The poor guy groans in frustration as Kim Ho calmly expects his winnings. With Bongchul running low on silver coins, Kim Ho offers a different kind of deal. Instead of currency, our boy demands payment in the form of valuable information. Later that day, the group grabs lunch together after hearing the announcer declare that a raid placement test will be held once the break ends. The three sit down, but our boy grows increasingly irritated by this slow-chewing bonehead. After finishing his sandwich, Bongchul finally asks what Kim Ho wants. That's when Kim Ho brings up the top achievers across the four main groups. Byung-cho doesn't mind spilling these details, thinking the info isn't all that confidential. So let's break down the four major organizations and what they stand for, besides the Student Council, which acts as the school's formal authority. There are four key factions: the Merm Alliance, the Guild Federation, the Magic Tower Society, and the Knights Order. Honestly, it feels like four entirely separate manhwa series got crammed into one academy. As for the heads of these groups, the Merm Alliance is led by none other than the Sword Saint's proud grandson. Moyoungjun. Next is Hong Yanhwa, the Ruby Tower's rep who oversees the Magic Tower Society. Yep, the same girl who stood no chance when fighting Kim Ho is actually a prominent figure in her group. Third, we have the Guild Federation, governed by the druid Park Nari, who's widely known for her striped feline companion. Interestingly, her guild also includes a mysterious individual whose strength is still concealed. Lastly, there's the Swordmaster's son. Seriously, it sounds like a manhwa title by itself. Jin Run Candle might as well have been reborn here. Anyway, Lee Seong-hyun is the one representing the Knights Order as their fourth and final leader. All in all, it's a pretty stacked lineup, judging from the info Byung-cho shared. Then it suddenly hits them: Hyun Woo is nowhere to be seen. Byung-cho recalls something about the club president and bolts off in a hurry, leaving Kim-ho puzzled about what just happened. Now alone, Kim-ho finds himself seated with the ever-quiet Yane. Truth be told, he thinks the girl seems painfully isolated, and part of him genuinely feels sympathy. Trying to lighten the mood, he brings up the cookie she had offered him the other day. Kim-ho casually mentions that Chunhi gave him a food coupon and he'd like to return the favor with a treat of his own. The coupon conjures a lovely slice of blueberry cake, and Yane, with a small smile, joins in to enjoy the moment together. While enjoying her slice of cake, she asks what he thinks about her match with Chunhi and why he believes she came up short. Kim-ho immediately replies that standard mana rounds just can't break through mana shields, meaning she's at a serious disadvantage against mages with deep mana reserves. However, Kim-ho also believes that if Yane sharpens her skill to enhance the impact of her bullets, she could completely shift the outcome in her favor. That said, the gunner doesn't exactly see the value in training mana, and to his disbelief, Kim-ho finds out that she's never done any kind of mana conditioning in her life. Surprised, he asks her how she's even managing to form mana bullets, prompting a blank stare from the girl. Becoming more intrigued, Kim asks if she's genuinely never practiced the magic bullet technique, and she flat-out confirms that she hasn't learned it whatsoever. That response stuns him because, for a gunner, learning magic bullet should be the first lesson. Kim-ho starts to question whether Yane has been making all her shots purely by instinct, and the idea that she managed to put up a fight against Chunhi without ever grasping the fundamentals of mana usage makes his brain reel. Realizing how untrained she truly is, Kim decides to lend a hand, explaining that once she learns how to channel mana and use magic bullet, the whole process might actually become way more manageable for her. Soon enough, it's time for the placement test, as students gather inside the assembly hall. Their homeroom instructor begins walking them through the Conquest exam. Standing in front of a shimmering portal, he announces that the trial will be held inside a dungeon called the Mist Forest. The flustered teacher then starts describing the dungeon's specific parameters, beginning with the first rule called high score. That rule simply means each student's total monster kills within 10 minutes will count toward their final score, so the task is to eliminate as many creatures as possible before time runs out. The second condition is what's known as the fixed zone. And to break it down, it's basically a ranked restriction area where all gear, abilities, and even natural talents get downgraded to F rank. The homeroom teacher warns that even the students' internal cores will be affected by the downgrade and tells them not to get any clever ideas, especially when it comes to how they handle their mana. After covering the rules, he begins calling their names one at a time to enter the portal. The room quickly fills with groans and sighs as most students start whining about how rigged the whole system is. The teacher just shakes his head, already disappointed by how weak the majority of them are, except for a few capable ones like Han Somi and Cho Jong-pi who might have a real shot. Next up, the next group is called, including Kim-ho and Yane. As they get ready, Kim casually advises her to try the rifle and aim for clean headshots on anyone reckless enough to charge in. Meanwhile, Chunhi finds it odd that someone who isn't even a gunner is confidently handing out tactical tips like some kind of pro. After that, they part ways, and Kim walks through the gate alone. It's been a minute since he last entered this area, and he figures now's the perfect chance to see how much he's improved. As the countdown starts, he springs into action and drops a goblin who thought its ambush would be clever enough to land. In the Mist Forest, monsters materialize at random, making it especially rough for students who aren't used to this level of unpredictability. But like any man-made system, even this dungeon has cracks, and Kim knows the biggest flaw lies in the repetition of its coded structure. Thinking back on the goblin's position, he figures it might be part of what's classified as Pattern C with that strategy locked in. He draws his compact blade and launches it right on cue, driving it deep into an ogre's eye socket and piercing its skull clean through. For a split second, he questions if he even needs a staff anymore, grinning while casually collecting the fallen monster's weaponry like free gear at a loot drop. From that point forward, he begins racking up points like wildfire, plunging into battle with zero hesitation. While he's tearing through foes, two hulking trolls decide he looks like an easy win and charge him. But their plan falls apart instantly. Kim doesn't even flinch. Just before wrapping up, he remembers the system has a replay function and swiftly deletes the footage, realizing that if the monster movement gets synced with his actions, it could spark major issues for him down the line. Barely 3 minutes in, and he's already scored well beyond the subquest threshold, deciding it's smarter not to attract any unwanted attention. As he exits the dungeon, he sees Yane staggering out, completely wiped out and mumbling about how brutal it was inside. Watching Kim finish so early makes the homeroom instructor recall that this was the same guy who once surrendered a PvP match, and now here he is again, leaving before the full 10-minute mark. Internally, he scoffs, chalking it up to a quitter's mindset and doubting someone like Kim could ever become a dragon slayer. But that opinion flips in an instant when he checks the ranking board and sees Kim already sitting comfortably in the mid-high tier bracket. That level of progress in such little time blows his expectations apart. He's never seen anything like it before. Convinced this student needs closer observation, the teacher summons the next wave of participants, including Hyun-woo and the rest. Kim glances up at the leaderboard and notices even the academy's elite like Lee Seong-hyun and Moyoung-jun are only sitting around Han So-mi's range. That makes him curious if Hyun-woo might actually climb higher. And right then it happens. Hyun-woo snags first place with the highest score recorded, proving that his talent is anything but luck-based. Impressed, Kim congratulates him the second he steps out, but Hyun-woo quickly redirects the praise, saying he only did well because Kim gave him a reset during their earlier match. Naturally, not everyone around them is happy about their success. A few students mutter some thinly veiled insults toward Kim, but Hyun-woo starts to bristle, only for Kim to give him a subtle wink, silently telling him to ignore the noise and keep his focus. When Kim asks if the testing phase is officially over, Hyun-woo replies that Chunhi's results haven't appeared yet. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, Chunhi is clearly overwhelmed. Goblins swarm her from every side and she's barely able to slow them down. At that moment, she recalls Kim's advice to Yane about targeting the head, taking a chance. She channels her mana into a single tight point, pulls back her bow, and releases a powerful shot. In the end, her score winds up on the lower end, and when it flashes publicly in front of everyone, she grows embarrassed, muttering quietly about how unfair it is to broadcast results like that. The homeroom teacher then wraps up the exam and informs the class that the rankings will be posted tomorrow, instructing everyone to rest until then. Immediately after ending the session, he makes a beeline to the systems technician and demands to see the recording from Kim's Conquest test. The tech guy tries to pull it up right away, but things quickly derail when he realizes that no replay file exists. That clearly doesn't sit well with the instructor. After some investigation, they uncover the obvious fact that Kim deleted the footage himself, which naturally sparks suspicion. The teacher realizes that if Kim kept progressing at his current pace, he would soon surpass 2,000 points without difficulty. Initially, he suspects that Kim might be one of the Dark Lord's apostles secretly operating within the academy. Hence, it would be wise to quietly prepare defensive measures against him. Four Eyes asks whether this should be reported to the principal, but the homeroom teacher opts to observe a bit longer. He reasons that without concrete proof right away, Kim might disappear underground, making him even harder to track. As the teacher walks away, Lee concludes that if Kim is truly an imposter, his true nature will surface soon enough. Meanwhile, in the cafeteria, Kim Ho meets up with Hyun-woo and Yane for some coffee. It seems they have gathered at the cafe to try and make sense of the perplexing booklet they received, all while sipping their drinks. Kim instructs Hyun-woo to take out his student ID and check his points, explaining that these points act as a form of currency within the academy. He goes on to say points are earned through dungeon quests as described in the booklet. While points can be spent on goods or services, they can also be used to purchase dungeon recordings, accessible right before a student exits the dungeon, including replays of other students. Showing off the replay of Han So-mi, Kim mentions it costs 100 points to buy. Seeing the blue-haired girl's recording so easily accessible leaves Hyun-woo utterly stunned. Kim adds that since Hyun-woo has a strong score, his own replays likely sell for a high price as well. Sure enough, Hyun-woo watches in amazement as he earns 300 points from others purchasing his dungeon footage. His friend quickly realizes this isn't all positive, since other students can analyze the recordings to uncover his weaknesses. He warns Hyun-woo that although luck helped him due to special dungeon rules, everyone will soon discover that his core is actually quite fragile. But given how valuable points are, the risk is worth taking. Then Kim reveals there's a special training room dense with mana, which allows cultivation and growth at an accelerated rate. Hyun-woo leaps out of his seat in astonishment that such a place exists, but Kim cautions him not to get too excited since entry is heavily restricted. Hyun-woo quickly guesses it must be extremely expensive, and Kim confirms it costs 500 points for just 6 hours. It doesn't take long for his friend to realize that daily visits would leave him more broke than a homeless person, so he asks if there's an alternative. Our boy grins and says they can buy a season pass, which is reserved for the top clubs. That means they'd have to wrest the spot away from someone like Moyoung-jun in the swordsmanship club, an almost impossible feat. Hyun-woo almost gives up right then, but Kim offers to help in exchange for a favor, with a sly smile. He asks Hyun-woo to venture into the deep dungeon once he's strong enough, explaining it's a far deadlier place than the mist forest they just experienced. Without hesitation, Hyun-woo confirms his warrior spirit and vows to accept the challenge. Hearing this, Kim urges him to grind as much as possible, promising to somehow secure the season pass within 2 weeks. Afterward, Kim heads to the workshop to arrange another discreet deal. Inside, he finds a shut-in working in the shadows who asks him to state his business. Kim Ho greets his senior politely and expresses his desire to join the Magic Engineering Club. The senior asks why Kim came directly to Workshop 4 instead of Workshop 1, adding that the people from Workshop 1 sent him here, clearly irritating the senior. The man bluntly tells Kim Ho to just say what he wants and leave before becoming a nuisance. As he turns away, Kim Ho notices his senior possesses a B-rank magical engineering skill and gleefully copies it without asking for permission. Then he scans the area searching for something. And the instant his gaze lands on it, a crafty smile spreads across his face. He snatches a glossy blue cube and asks his senior if it holds any value. The senior replies that it's mostly useless junk due to its complexity. No one can reproduce anything like it, so Kim Ho offers to take it and says he feels guilty for receiving it for free. He proposes trading it for a catalyst reagent instead, since although the item isn't much, the reagent is always essential for an engineer. Just as planned. The senior gladly agrees to the trade and instructs him to keep their deal confidential. Grinning as he leaves, Kim Ho watches the fools celebrating, thinking he just swapped a catalyst worth thousands of points for what's basically garbage. Suddenly, an optional quest pops up for Kim Ho, and he quickly accepts despite it being quite inconvenient. However, what most don't realize is that the prize for the seemingly worthless quest is the S-rank artifact called the Cube of Life. Having trained 1,000 S-rank characters before, he heads to the Mana training chamber because he knows a shortcut to craft the item without enduring the painfully tedious questline. Using the amplification skill to boost his copied B-rank magical engineering to S-rank, he begins tackling the 10x10 Rubik's Cube within a strict 60-second limit. Normally, it would take around 3 days to solve, but he makes remarkable progress in just 1 minute. Afterwards, he fully concentrates and strengthens his core through an hour of focused meditation, continuing to alternate it with 1 minute of cube solving repeatedly. Because he must obtain the Cube of Life before Friday to be ready for a very special event. The next day in class, he's surprised to see Yane arrive early while Hyun-woo is oddly late, but his attention is quickly captured by Yane's unexpected dinosaur-shaped cookie attack. While Kim Ho is utterly enchanted by her crispy dinosaur cookies, Hyun-woo finally arrives and Kim Ho asks how the special training went. With a bright, genuine smile, Hyun-woo says it was incredible and believes he will break through soon. Hearing this, Kim Ho promises to secure the season pass as fast as possible, while Yane succumbs to crushing disappointment at him for calling her adorable bear cookies dinosaurs. Then their homeroom teacher enters the room and announces that all battles will now take place in the arena, with the time limit extended to a full 10 minutes, so they must use every second wisely. He also states that every first year must complete 3 matches within the week, and their score will drop drastically if they refuse to participate. Hearing this, Kim Ho quietly smirks in anticipation of the event he's been looking forward to and thinks it's finally time to crush the competition. Checking the system panel, he notices a subquest that boosts rewards depending on how many victories he achieves after playing 3 PvP matches. Because of this, he knows he cannot afford defeat and must win. He tells Hyun-woo to accompany him to the arena, but just as they're about to leave, Yane grabs his arm and mentions she's free today. Everyone around watches, expecting a proposal. But their hopes are dashed when they realize it's just a training session the two had arranged. Later that afternoon, with the arena completely empty and Kim Ho casually joking around with his friend, a red-haired guy named Jae-hong suddenly enters and begins taunting him for backing out of the fight against Park Seongmin. He calls Kim Ho a coward, which instantly reignites Hyun-woo's temper, but Kim Ho calmly waves him off to prevent things from escalating. Nevertheless, Kim has no intention of easing up on the redhead and starts taunting him by pointing out they both scored identically on the placement tests. That only infuriates Jae-hong further as he shouts about how offensive it is to be likened to a coward, trying to prove his claim. He throws down a challenge for a one-on-one duel right then and there. Kim agrees immediately, clearly relishing how events are unfolding exactly as planned. Jae-hong goes all out, believing he can finish the fight with a single powerful strike. But Kim remains one step ahead and strikes him with the hummingbird spell, freezing him instantly. He even ridicules Jae-hong for falling for the exact same trick twice, especially after being embarrassed by the Thunder Girl not long ago. Kim remarks that he at least showed more mercy than Song Chunhi and concludes the fight by defeating him decisively. Despite suffering a clear loss, Jae-hong refuses to concede and insists a rematch would have a different outcome. Kim plays along and accepts another round. But the result is unchanged, with Jae-hong ending up worse off than before. Still unwilling to quit, Jae-hong challenges him once more, visibly fired up to somehow reverse the situation. Even though Kim only needs one more win to finish his quest, he pretends to be completely drained and demands compensation if they are to fight again. The desperate redhead, eager for another chance, offers a spiritual pill made by his family just to persuade Kim to accept, only to be beaten the exact same way once again. This time, The defeat finally sobers him up, and Jae-hong acknowledges his loss, even apologizing for his earlier rude behavior. He admits he was wrong to call Kim a coward and confesses he misjudged him, but Kim casually tells him to keep pretending to be a coward for now. Although the request sounds suspicious, Jae-hong agrees without pressing further. After securing his 3 wins, Kim checks in with his friend and learns that Hyun-woo has also earned 2 victories. Hyun-woo says he has 1 more match left and tells Kim to go ahead while he finishes up. Kim then heads to the Mana training chamber where he begins instructing Yane, patiently teaching her the fundamentals of magic bullets and helping her grow stronger. The girl proves to be a quick study, and her ability to grasp everything impresses Kim genuinely. Their training continues until it's finally her turn to compete, and she enters her match against a green-haired opponent named Quack Jal. The guy tries to be sneaky by using the terrain to stay hidden, but Yane simply smiles and takes him out like a bird on a wire, securing a clean and effortless victory. Later that night, the homeroom teacher reviews the match recordings and notices several oddities. His eyes widen when he watches Yane's battle and begins questioning how someone could improve so drastically in just 2 days. That's when he recalls overhearing that Kim had trained with her, and it becomes clear that Kim has pulled some serious strings again. The whole situation sends a chill down the teacher's spine as he wonders who this enigmatic kid really is. Meanwhile, Kim is relaxing somewhere else, fully focused on the cube, and finally completes crafting the Cube of Life, which enhances the potency of any stored life items by a solid 1.3 times. He feels quite satisfied with himself for all the effort and intense meditation that elevated his core rank to D. This means the mana usage from skills won't be nearly as draining as before. With his preparations finally wrapped up, Kim Ho confidently prepares to showcase his new little invention. On his way to class, he bumps into the Druid Park Nari, just as he expected. All animals like her cat are extremely sensitive to life energy, so the cube immediately catches Tiger Kitty's attention and the feline leaps straight into the device, settling in comfortably. Nari apologizes for her overly inquisitive cat being so forward and politely calls it back. But as a druid, she instantly senses the abundant life energy radiating from Kim Ho's peculiar gadget. Right then and there, Kim Ho says he has to leave, so it'd be great if she could retrieve her clingier than his ex-cat. Intrigued by the enigmatic cube, Nari asks if he is from Class 3. After that, she finally departs while still apologizing, marking a big win in Kim Ho's quiet mission to catch the Nature Club's eye and secure that valuable season pass. Then he gets fully ready for his long-awaited main event. Later in class, the teacher drones through a dull lecture. But Kim Ho intensely waits just 1 more minute until the event triggers. When class ends, students start relaxing and chatting, when suddenly a deep red aura bursts brightly and a pulsating orb materializes out of nowhere. Lightning crackles from the orb, striking every student in the room. Their shock is brief as the effect vanishes as quickly as it appeared. At first, they think nothing serious happened, but as numbers appear on each other's foreheads, Kim Ho instantly recognizes this as the surprise inspection called the Ban Wave. It uses advanced sci-fi magic to detect if students carry any prohibited gadgets or illegal items in their inventory and locks them away. Kim Ho is genuinely startled by the horrendous screeching noise it emits, while Yane and Hyun-woo remain calm as if nothing unusual occurred. He notices a nervous guy frantically checking his inventory. Kim Ho casually approaches and asks if his club president mentioned that today was inspection day. Still, the guy protests that he doesn't have anything technically illegal. But what he does carry are things no man should ever be caught with. So Kim Ho offers to help him out. The guy doubts Kim can do much, but the moment Kim takes the item, the guy desperately pleads for rescue and promises to obey whatever Kim commands in return. Hearing this, Kim Ho calmly makes it clear that the guy now owes him a favor, which the guy quickly accepts without hesitation. Kim then tells him to safely store all his banned items inside the cube, making the guy suspiciously curious if it's actually secure. Hiding together under the table like 2 highly suspicious guys, Kim Ho tells him to take it or leave it. Hearing footsteps approaching, the guy panics and hurriedly dumps all his contraband into the Cube of Life without another word. Suddenly, Chunhi bursts in loudly, yelling for all the filthy villains to freeze immediately. She spots the boys hiding under the table and demands to know what they're trying to conceal. Kim Ho casually stands and replies they're just having a private boys' conversation and it's none of her business. The guy with the number on his forehead backs him up, insisting they weren't doing anything shady. But Chunhi orders him to empty his pockets of whatever suspicious junk he's carrying anyway. Then she faces Kim and orders him to reveal whatever he's concealing as well, because the orb doesn't lie. She's struck with disbelief when it doesn't react in the slightest. Dumbfounded, she gapes while Kim excuses himself and casually walks away, feeling quite pleased that he secured the Cube of Life just in time for Friday. Demonstrating the power of the only item capable of bypassing the ban wave will grant him serious leverage. After class, he strolls down the hallway with the same guy who can't stop showering him with thanks, probably convinced he'd be done for if caught carrying all that contraband. Wearing a sly grin, Kim casually reminds him that nothing came free. Kim then tells him to head straight to his club president to retrieve the confiscated items, and the guy nervously admits she's actually been wanting to see him for a while. You see, the Thieves Guild handles the distribution of all illegal goods throughout Dragon Slayer Academy. Right at the entrance, Kim watches the clueless guy greet his boss innocently, only to have her kick him square in the face for making her work on her day off. She proceeds to rough him up, complaining he wasted her precious free time. Observing her go all out, Kim finally says hello to remind her he's still there, and the woman immediately calms down and introduces herself as Gyuong, president of the Thieves Club. She wastes no time and demands to see the item he claims can completely circumvent the ban wave system. Seeing the Cube of Life up close, she can hardly believe it's real, just as rumors suggested. She even admits it stirs her so much she wants to steal it for herself immediately. Still, Kim reminds her she'd get caught right away since all Magitech devices have built-in anti-theft safeguards, leaving her stunned that the Cube of Life is Magitech. Hearing this, her enthusiasm cools off and she leans back, asking what Kim really wants, while also explaining the club's current financial struggles. He assures her he won't request anything beyond their means and politely asks her to personally escort him to their temporary underground storage room for a private discussion. This instantly sours her mood and she narrows her eyes, questioning if he's serious since the storage is where all confiscated contraband is dumped right after being seized by the ban wave. She explains the items are usually destroyed within a week by the higher-ups, after which they mysteriously disappear to an unknown location. However, Kim calmly states he already knows the president herself will be visiting there in a day or two. She asks him straight if he's a lackey for the disciplinary committee. He shrugs and tells her he has nothing to do with that uptight group. In fact, they're on bad terms. Hearing that, she says while she appreciates the earlier help, this current request isn't something she can pull off without trouble. Just then, Kim catches her off guard by revealing he knows the storage is guarded around the clock by disciplinary committee members, and that breaking in is difficult enough. But escaping afterward is nearly impossible. That's precisely why he offers her a solid deal. She just needs to help him get out after the job, and in return he'll hand over the Cube of Life. The president hesitates briefly, weighing his proposal carefully. Realizing how invaluable it would be for the Thieves Club to conceal their most precious items inside a magical cube that even the ban wave cannot detect. Locking eyes with her, he offers one final chance to accept the deal before it's completely off the table. Overlooking the location where the covert operation is set to unfold, the thieves assemble. Before initiating anything drastic, club leader Dang Yu-yang performs a quick headcount, confirming everyone's presence. All were accounted for. But her crew is puzzled by the presence of an unfamiliar rookie. Without revealing much to her team, Gu Yang simply states that the newcomer is there to assist. Naturally, the senior thieves remain skeptical of the boy. The mission is dangerous enough as it is. Adding a rookie could complicate things. Davin, the club's tech specialist and support offsite, verifies that preparations are complete. As a final word of caution, the leader warns Kim Ho to avoid drawing attention at all costs. Once inside, the main goal is to grab rare, small items. Infusing their legs with shadowy energy, the Thieves Club charges forward. The technique is called Silent Steps, a handy B-rank movement skill. Since crafting the Cube of Life, Kim Ho felt free to clear magical engineering from his skills slot and replace it with a vital stealth ability. Observing the club perform the technique, all he needed was a quick demonstration. Meanwhile, the sole guard stationed at the entrance was utterly unprepared for what was coming. Suddenly, bizarre butterflies flutter around him. By the time he realizes something is off, the butterflies detonate, transforming into a binding substance through their shadowy flight. It acts as a perfect rope and gag to incapacitate unready guards without causing serious harm. Within this old building, the third floor secretly stores a hoard of confiscated treasures. Naturally, authorities placed numerous security spells throughout the area. After bypassing many of these traps, the group is spotted by a patrolling guard. The guard attempts to raise his staff but is quickly restrained and neutralized by the thief twins. Moving onward, they encounter more guards, efficiently subduing them without unnecessary bloodshed. Eventually, they reach the final corner before the temporary storage room. Before breaking in, Dang Yu-yang pulls out an artifact for one last scan. Through a magical lens, she spots a troublesome goblin-like figure guarding the door. He's a strict third-year wielding an A-rank axe called Hell Cleaver. For a thief like Gu Yang, this is the worst possible matchup. It seems Kim Ho will have to step in early tonight to assist. He turns to the girl boss and confirms if she has Shadow Dream in her skill list. Only a select few know about this technique, but there's no time to explain how Kim Ho learned of it. Once confirmed, he lightly touches her and uses Amplify to raise her C-rank Shadow Dream to A-rank. Time is slipping away, so there's no room for hesitation. Gu Yang unleashes Shadow Dream, summoning more butterflies than she ever has in her life. The purple swarm quickly surrounds the axe-wielding brute. Like the savage he is, the man begins wildly swinging his massive weapon, attempting to crush the tiny insects. Naturally, this strategy fails miserably. As soon as one butterfly gets close enough to explode, a chain reaction ignites. The axe wielder is eliminated in a single blow, resembling a cocoon about to sprout wings. Rank skills earn their status for good reason. Gu Yang makes a mental note to confront the freshman about all this insane nonsense once the mission is over. With the final barrier dismantled, the thieves were free to indulge in their plunder. While searching for gleaming and precious treasures, Kim Ho took time for some personal acquisitions. The Academy's list of forbidden items primarily bans objects with hazardous side effects. Anything that harms the body or mind is prohibited. Tonight, Kim Ho focused on outlawed goods bearing elemental drawbacks, such as the paralysis-inducing shock stone. Thanks to his S-rank elemental immunity, these items posed virtually no disadvantages. After several minutes of thorough searching, he finally felt content with his collection. Since there was a bit of extra time, he decided to look through some skill tomes. Skills carrying severe elemental penalties often tend to be powerful. Scanning through pile after pile of manuals, he eventually spotted something that grabbed his interest. It was a blazing book emanating intense heat. Given Kim Ho's lack of combat expertise, this fiery fist grimoire was a blessing. While the group was packing their loot, some unexpected visitors stormed in. Dragon Slayer Academy's Student Council President Seun Kai and second-year Discipline Committee member Guokung Jai arrived to complicate the situation. Dang Yu Yang remained unfazed, more irritated than anything. They probably chose the worst night to attempt this heist. Refusing to listen to any explanations, the Student Council President demanded unconditional surrender and a peaceful escort to the disciplinary office. The longer this standoff lasted, the worse things would become for the thieves. Seeing this, Dang Yu Yang activated one of their contingency plans and shouted for her team to scatter and flee. She dropped a device onto the ground that created a shadow refuge, concealing allies inside for a few minutes. Naturally, this provided enough time to make their escape. Guokung Jai then produced a divination crystal and swiftly located the thieves still trapped inside the building. After alerting the entire security force, escaping the old structure just escalated to a near-impossible challenge. On his way out, Kim Ho was nearly crushed by a massive boulder hurtling toward him. Fortunately, his reflexes were sharp enough to evade the stone. Guokung Jai calmly emerged from a corner, commending Kim Ho for dodging such a perfectly executed ambush. Guokung Jai is well-informed, familiar with most Thieves' Club members, but this black-haired youth was a complete unknown, likely a freshman. Kim Ho did not utter a single word. He was smart enough to mask his voice around the authorities, and Guokung Jai acknowledged this. Silence effectively meant surrender was off the table. Jagged stone spikes erupted from the ground, attempting to unbalance Kim Ho. Closing the gap, he summoned an electric hummingbird. Guokung Jai clicked his tongue and summoned stone cannons held by tree roots. He unleashed a barrage of cannonballs, hoping to knock out the thief. But the hummingbird gracefully weaved through the hail of projectiles. This nerd had never witnessed such expert bird control before. Had he not cast a defensive spell beforehand, he would have been finished. Recovering from the shock, the freshman thief silently slipped past him. Unfortunately for Kim Ho, the only exit route was lined with lethal rock cannons. Guokung Jai detonated another volley, seemingly determined to make an example out of this freshman. No one had ever survived one of his planned hits before. Just as he prepared to check the aftermath, Guokung Jai started sweating as the hallway's temperature soared to infernal heights. The last thing he saw was a thief with a fist blazing as if forged in the very fires of hell. Feeling the weight of the moment as he witnessed a forbidden technique unleashed, Guokung Jai poured every ounce of mana he possessed into constructing a formidable triple bloodstone barrier. That elaborate defensive maneuver was barely a fragile shield against Kim Ho's blazing punch. He unleashed Inferno Fist with devastating precision, smashing through the barrier and forcing Seun Kai to retreat. This time he was fortunate and pulled it off, but wielding a forbidden skill proved tougher than anticipated. Managing its power in particular was a challenge, thankfully. He reined in his strength just enough to avoid seriously harming the unlucky target. The school might overlook this, but the Emerald Magic Tower and Disciplinary Committee would certainly not remain silent. Those meddling officials would work tirelessly to uncover Kim Ho's identity. Still, they would find nothing. Suddenly, footsteps drawn by the commotion edged closer. That was Kim Ho's signal to leave. Silently slipping away from the battlefield, the rookie disciplinary enforcers arrived, the very next day. A few individuals were escorted to the Student Disciplinary Committee's Room of Truth. Sitting in the hot seat, Dang Yu Yang put on an impressive act, maintaining her innocence. She had been in custody long enough to wear down the Student Council president and exit the room. The Disciplinary Committee Chief Aun then took over the questioning, adopting a gentler approach. Calmly, he handed the temporary storage ledger to Guyang, who eagerly flipped through the pages. She silently thanked Kim Ho for his involvement. Page after page revealed small yet valuable items pocketed by her club. The committee chief and others knew the culprit, but they lacked any clue as to how the thieves concealed the items, nor did they possess concrete proof. As usual, Guyang firmly denied all allegations, without solid evidence. Any case against her wouldn't hold up. For now, the chief could only impose a weak disciplinary measure on the prime suspect. Leaving the room of truth, she encountered the rest of the disciplinary committee. Counting heads inside, it seemed one core member was missing. Her smug demeanor irritated son Chunhi, who suspected the mastermind was shamelessly feigning ignorance. Reaching her limit, Chunhi snapped about a thief using a dangerous technique like Inferno Fist to send Senior Guokung-jai to the infirmary. In reality, Guyang had no idea what Chunhi meant. But if she had to guess, only one person in that operation had the skill to wield a forbidden technique. After the interrogation, the club leader headed straight to the guild to inspect Kim Ho's hand. Surprisingly, it appeared flawless. No burn marks whatsoever. Kim Ho didn't bother concealing his responsibility for the hospitalization of that one guy. Forget the bespectacled nerd. It was time to review the fruits of their efforts. Gazing at the overflowing treasures safely stored in the life cube, Guyang drooled with excitement. She had never witnessed such a dazzling collection of colors before. With this rich haul, the deal should be considered complete. Just as Kim Ho prepared to leave, Guyang stopped him with a formal invitation to join the Thieves' Club. She promised to look after the rookie if he accepted. Last night she'd seen arrogance and greed. In her eyes, this boy was the perfect thief incarnate. It might sound like an insult, but coming from her, it was high praise. Either way, Kim Ho declined the recruitment offer. He suspected she was partly interested because of the life cube. He already planned to sell it anyway. More importantly, he needed season passes to special practice rooms, about 4 of them. Besides, immunity to the ban wave was just a bonus. The cube's true value lay in its core function. He pledged to reveal the item description to her in exchange for a small favor. Kim Ho simply wanted to plant some seeds by sending word to the head of the Magitech Club about a freshman completing a 10x10x10 cube. Here's the rewritten narration following your strict guidelines. With all replaced by the correct sentence, 100% vocabulary transformation, and exact sentence structure and flow preserved. Guyang consented and was utterly stunned upon discovering the true nature of the life cube, which boosts the potency of stored life items by 1.3 times. A feature Busted would undoubtedly trade at any cost in certain factions. Before departing, Guyang earnestly urged Kim Ho to reconsider her invitation, even if the cube was not a factor. She appreciated everything he could contribute, so he promised to mull it over. A weekend slipped by, and a few days of silence eased tensions within the disciplinary committee. Today, Kim Ho was on his way to class alongside the perpetually sluggish CEO. It was only Monday morning, and she was already moving like a walking corpse. As they neared their next class, Kim Ho became increasingly convinced that some brats from the Emerald Magic Tower or the Nature Club were tailing him. He didn't particularly mind the surveillance, but dealing with the issue early was less bothersome. So he let CEO enter the classroom first while he took care of some pests. CEO quietly accepted but also noticed the 2 barely concealed spies. Kim Ho spun around and confronted the irritating duo directly. The girl was startled, while the boy smirked arrogantly, pleased that Kim Ho spared him the trouble of starting the confrontation. He boasted of being a mage from the Emerald Magic Tower. The blue-haired girl was more courteous, formally inviting Kim Ho to meet their leader. Naturally, he flatly declined the offer. If the tower leader wanted anything, he could come himself instead of sending minions. The boy was delighted by Kim Ho's refusal and slipped on a glove. He had been itching to hit someone to reinforce his message. On that point, Kim Ho agreed. Without letting the rat finish his speech, Kim Ho dispatched a hummingbird. When it landed, it completely paralyzed the green rat, causing violent convulsions. Miss Rat watched her partner writhe on the ground, unsure how to react. If they wanted a fight, Kim Ho was always ready. Realizing she was no match for someone so resolute, Miss Rat apologized for the disturbance, judging by the hummingbird's movements. She sensed Kim Ho was a skilled combatant. She expressed her regrets and he turned away. At least one of the rats had enough sense to quit while ahead. Miss Rat believed the rumors about Kim Ho being a coward were utterly false. Mr. Rat, however, was convinced Kim Ho had simply gotten lucky with a strike. He was already plotting revenge when a magic bullet sliced through the correct sentence and struck the back of his head. Miss Rat quickly scanned the area, terrified of an unseen sniper lurking nearby. She tried to stay composed and clever, but Miss Rat was implicated and shot in the head. The Emerald Magic Tower representatives were effectively eliminated. In class, the instructor explained how dungeons are designed to exhaust entrants. Running out of resources inside equates to failure. Surprisingly, CEO arrived at her seat later than Kim Ho, likely because she had been busy sniping the correct sentence outside. Finally, the instructor announced that their upcoming raid test would be conducted in a time attack format. Surface-level dungeons can be attempted repeatedly in practice mode, but the actual challenge only allows one try. In a time attack, participants must rest the target and destroy the totem within 5 minutes to successfully clear the stage. Students are encouraged to rehearse their fastest path before the live raid commences, since this is a due event. Shin Bungchul immediately grabbed onto the top scorer from the previous exam, Gaon Bunwoo. Kim Ho gave the nod for the guy to team up with another friend. It seemed his partner was already determined as soon as the instructor made the announcement. Seo Yan clung to his sleeve, declaring that they were now a team. Just when you thought Miss and Mr. Rat had finished their punishment, our focus shifts to the Emerald Magic Tower. A slick-haired man with the ability to manipulate trees was venting his anger and frustration on his subordinate, his brother. A disciplinary officer had been beaten by a thief after all. Slick managed to restrain himself, letting Mr. Rat off before the situation escalated. Seated on his wooden throne, Slick head brooded over his ominous premonitions. Emerald Magic Tower President Mok Young-hua intended to confront the notorious Kim Ho, acting on advice from the Nature Club's president Ha Su-yan. The tower's prestige had plummeted. Maybe they could recover some ground by securing that peculiar cube. Young Ha planned to seize it as compensation for the insult against Emerald. Hearing his boss's scheme, Mr. Rat spoke out of turn, volunteering for another mission to redeem himself. He insisted his previous failure was due to carelessness. Yang Ha was willing to grant him a second chance. But failure meant expulsion from the club. Despite the stakes, Mr. Rat accepted the task with confidence. To be safe, Mok Young-hua agreed to provide Mr. Rat with a golem to help crush that mysterious freshman, while plans brewed in the Emerald Tower. Kim Ho was running through the Goblin Swamp alongside Seo Yan. This was their first practice run, a trial to get a good grasp of the time attack challenge to claim the top rewards in both solo and duo dungeons. The system gave Kim Ho under a minute to clear both tests. The solo dungeon posed no threat since he could unleash his full power there. The duo test was a bit more complicated. If he taught Seo Yan a fixed route for this goblin-infested swamp, speedrunning would be effortless. However, giving her that shortcut would hinder her natural development. She would gain more by practicing her own rotations and paths. After a few minutes of running and shooting, the pair finally reached the flooded goblin's lair, the swamp's boss. Before starting, Kim Ho asked his partner whether she preferred to dodge or launch a full offensive immediately. Defeating a boss awarded the team 120 bonus points. With such a tempting reward, who wouldn't take the risk for a kill? Kim Ho positioned himself optimally to back up Yin's DPS with the control provided by Hummingbird. Unfortunately, the boss wasn't foolish enough to absorb a blatant frontal assault. Still, the Flood Goblin's attention shifted, leaving Yin exposed for a perfect shot with her rifle. Pulling the trigger, she struck the back of the goblin's bald head. Her magic bullet lacked the power to pierce through and kill in one hit. Instead, it only made the boss angrier and more unpredictable. Wildly swinging his sword, the Flood Goblin redirected his aggression towards the sniper. At such close range, the rifle's advantage vanished. Nevertheless, Seo Yin remained calm and steady. She aimed carefully and fired again. Part of her confidence stemmed from her trust in Kim Ho, who always acted at the perfect moment. Amplifying herself, Hummingbird's rank was temporarily boosted from E to C. Consequently, the bird grew larger and more noticeable. Its voltage is elevated and the paralytic effect is even stronger. With a completely immobilized goblin in her sights, Yin lined up a devastating 5-meter shot. The practice run was an outright triumph. Combining their kill points, remaining time, and clear bonus, the pair amassed 649 points. They significantly cut down their previous best time from the initial attempt, with room left to improve. Before running it again, Yan asked her teammate if he could showcase that magical shooting technique once more, spending more time with her. Kim Ho realized just how fiercely competitive she truly is. She was clearly frustrated the goblin boss didn't fall when she had the first perfect opportunity. Since she wanted to focus on specific aspects of her skills, it was best to head over to the training center. At the shooting range, Kim Ho prepared a comprehensive lesson on a technique called discharge. At present, his partner's mana shots were excellent in quality. However, she treated them merely as tools, neglecting their full potential. To clarify with a simple example, he formed a magic bullet and pretended his hand was a mana gun. This allowed him to provide a clearer demonstration of the rapid mana release through a perfectly timed finger snap. This forms the essence of discharge. It resembles shooting a standard mana shot. But mastering those tiny adjustments can dramatically alter the technique's power. Following his guidance, Seo attempted to mimic Kim Ho's finger gun demonstration. When she tried firing forward, the bullet oddly shot backward. For a skilled marksman, she strangely lacked the fundamentals. To reduce the difficulty, they reverted to firing basic mana shots instead of forming bullets. Seoya's task was to perfect her mana shots while Kim Ho grabbed some dinner. As he was about to leave, she offered him a black card to pay, judging by the shine on it. Seo Yan must be a very wealthy young lady. Upon arriving at the cafeteria, Kim Ho made the most of the unlimited budget and ordered a bit of everything. The next day arrived, and Kim Ho and Yin were back at it again with speedrun practice. This time, she chose dual pistols rather than a single massive sniper rifle. This allowed her to overwhelm goblins through sheer volume of fire. After eliminating the lesser foes, it was finally time to unleash the real heavy artillery. As usual, Kim Ho assumed a supportive position, continuously deploying hummingbirds to stun enemies, while Yin delivered the bulk of the damage. On this occasion, her shots were not only precise and lethal, but also strong enough to slice through goblin weapons without interruption. Combining the leftover time, enemy kills, boss defeat, and clear bonus, the pair tallied 728 points. Following that flawless display, Kim Ho commended Yin for flawlessly applying what she had learned the previous day into her combat techniques. For the first time since they met on that train, Kim Ho witnessed the usually drowsy young woman's smile.